everybody, and welcome to the 7th round of the Speed World Challenge Series. Today, it is the Toyo Tires Mid-Ohio Grand Prix, presented by Dish Network and WorldChallengeDish.com. We start off with the World Challenge GT on the Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course, a technical roller coaster, an absolutely fascinating racetrack. Great to have you with us, everybody. Tom Natchew, take us around.
Well, as you say, one of the most technical courses available in North America, and it's not only sports car drivers that will tell you that, IndyCar drivers will tell you that too. The keyhole leads onto the longest straightaway, and the biggest opportunity for passing as they go down into madness. Flat out here, all the way to top gear, as fast as your car will go, you're going that fast. Hard onto the braking into this zone they call madness, and although there are no passing zones per se here, you'll see a lot of passing happening here just for opportunity's sake. Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course is a momentum track, and to get a fast lap in here, you've got to have momentum on your side. And of course, in World Challenge, before we do any racing, first we have a qualifying coin toss. Round number 7 of the Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course for Speed World Challenge GT. The pole sitter, Brandon Davis, Andy Pilgrim, James Sofronis, Tony Rivera, and Dino Crescentini. You have the honor, Brandon. Toss that, call it in the air. If you win, you keep the pole. If you lose, the grid inverts.
Okay. Heads.
Heads it is. The grid stays the same here.
We've had 2 rough ones where we've lost and had to start 5th. It feels fine. It feels pretty good to qualify on the pole and actually be able to start there.
You got your lap in early, and that's always very important.
Yeah, it seemed like the first 2 laps it was fast. The 3rd lap, the tires started to go away. So we'll see what will happen in the race. I mean, I hope we can stay there. We've had some issues where we'll be fast in qualifying, and then the race we just don't have the pace. So hopefully we can be there and hold on for the whole way this time.
On behalf of Toyo Tires and the entire team at Optima Batteries, gentlemen, start your engines!
And a great field of World Challenge GT cars come to life and set out on the sighting lap. You can see Brandon Davis anxious to get this one underway, and rightfully so, looking for his first win of the season. And as always, we're going to have some great onboard looks for you here during this World Challenge GT race. On the upper left, it's Gunter Schaldock. On the upper right, Randy Popes. Lower left, Tony Rivera. Lower right, Eric Kern. All of them provided by the great folks at Chase Cam. Some absolutely awesome video, and you'll be able to enjoy it when we come back. And welcome back to the Toyo Tires Mid-Ohio Grand Prix, presented by Dish Network and WorldChallengeDish.com. 7th round, this is GT. Let's take a look at the starting lineup. Brandon Davis, 3rd pole of the season, 6th of his career. Andy Pilgrim alongside. James Sofronis, a great run to 3rd. Tony Rivera, 4th. Porsches, 3rd, 4th, and 5th, as Dino Crescentini there. Then Eric Kern missed every bit of practice due to an engine change, but was strong in qualifying. And there's a big story. At the very back of the pack, as you take a look at the rest of the lineup, Randy Popes, major transmission issues, and he will start dead last. Broke on the first lap of qualifying, so he's got his work cut out for him as we take a look at the rest of the field. And keep in mind, Mike Borkowski making his debut and able to get a race going, then Sonny Whelan. And here is a look at the 8th row, Mike Hartley in the Viper and Randy Popes. And you see Kathy Malik showing the 5-second board. We are that close. When the red lights go out, we go racing in round 7. World Challenge GT, there's the launch. Into turn 1, Brandon Davis gets the job done. Andy Pilgrim, probably being a little tentative with the tranny problems that team has had this year, slots into 2nd. James Sofronis in the Porsche right away, looking to jump to the outside, now to the inside into the keyhole. Andy Pilgrim, pretty savvy, covers that beautifully. So far, so good, Tom.
Tony Rivera slots in the outside groove, trying to get some momentum down the straightaway, and Eric Kern has got the power down. Brandon Davis, and then Andy Pilgrim. Here's Eric Kern with all of that horsepower in that Corvette, trying to run the number 97 car down. He's already made up 1 spot, Greg.
Yeah, he had a great start getting around Crescentini. Now down into madness. This up and down, right, left complex. Look how close it is as Rivera squeezes. Underneath, there was contact with Sofronis. Looked like Rivera may have just clipped that curb and bounced into Sofronis, but he gets through. That has allowed Curran to come up the inside as well. Curran by Sofronis. Tom, you talked about it, momentum. Even with the big horsepower cars, you lose a little, you can get freight trained.
Eric Curran has got his head down. Hasn't had much time in the car at all, just a 20-minute qualifying session, and he knows if he's going to get after Brandon Davis, he's going to have to do it early.
Tremendous amount of success here at Mid-Ohio for Kern in the past. In 07, a dominating win from pole, so he knows his way around. just been one of those frustrating seasons. A number of second places, but also some mechanical issues, even a disqualification. Let's hop on board for the start, Tom, with Randy Post.
Randy is a little circumspect, as you said. Andy Pilgrim was. They're worried about these gearboxes now. They don't have that many left in the transporter. Randy Post takes a smooth getaway, but Andy Pilgrim, once he's up to speed, he's in a position to attack Brandon Davis.
Well, and this Volvo, obviously, on this track, sort of like Autobahn, with just a few less corners and maybe a little more elevation change, is a very busy technical one that should be strong for the all-wheel drive Volvos. We hop on board with James Safronis chasing Curran in the Whelen Corvette. Oh! Big contact, and suddenly, it just looked like suddenly Curran slowed down dramatically. Oh, and he has pulled off course. But Tom, I don't think that was because of the contact with Safronis. I think something happened.
Yeah, there's $1,500 worth of headlight bouncing down the track. That's evidence of the contact between Curran and James Safronis. Something broke on Curran's car, and James Safronis tucked up right in behind him, had absolutely no move but to ride it out, stopping, and then right hand down, he was able to squirt around him with one less headlight and some bodywork damage on the front of his car.
Well, he was in the back of Curran for a while watching the Swisher race in Global Motorsports Group entry. Oops, somebody dropping the left side tires at the exit of 11, that big rise right at the apex. Let's hop on board for a replay of Gunter Schaldock. Right there, Tom, that was, I think, the headlight from Safronis.
I'm sure James and the Global Motorsports Group guys appreciate Gunter not running that over. After all, you don't just pop over to Pep Boys and pick another one of those things up.
And they can do a little bit of damage to a Toyo tire.
That's true.
Nice move by Pope. Sorry about that, Tom, but what a great job. This is why Randy Popes is a multiple champion and is good in anything he does. That was an incredible piece of thread in the needle.
Yeah, even Brian Till will tell you that's not a wise place to pass, but Randy Pope's taking every opportunity, and now right on the back bumper of the Kleinschmidt Incorporated, number 34 of Tony Gaples, takes a look down the inside. Gaples not going to roll over, Greg.
Not at all. He's having a great season. Had a tremendous race at Sebring to start the year, and good to see him on form as always. And you're right about the passing. You mentioned it at the top. This is a tough track to pass on in terms of passing zones, but you can get creative and force the issue in a couple of opportunities, and we've seen that. Back on board now live with Gunter Schaldock, and this is that battle with Whelen, and he finally just out-deeps him down into the S's. Beautiful move there, and Gunter Schaldock has picked up another spot. Having Mike Borkowski on the team to do some data referencing and coaching obviously is a very strong opportunity for him. Meanwhile, here comes James Safronis back in the pack, and even though he had his moment in this race, for him, it has been an incredible season.
Well, we're close enough. It's definitely a good hunt, and we got 4 races left. I knew qualifying was important to get those points. I like the fact that SCCA gives you points for qualifying, so it really pushes the cars and makes sure that they're actually showing what they got. So I did 1 lap, I let it all hang out, and I found a top 3 wasn't too bad. We would have rather been at least second, obviously first, but at this point I'm putting my head down. I'm going for the win. This will be a race that you will, if you watch me this whole race, I will give 100%. There's no letting off. There's no let off the brakes a little easier. I'm going to drive as hard as I can. I'm not leaving anything on the table.
Well, and he hasn't all year, and the result has been a career best season thus far. And he also addressed how important the qualifying was, especially at a technical track like this where passing is at a premium. But he had that moment early. Now we get to see what can James Safronis and that gorgeous Global Motorsports Group Porsche do from a little bit deeper in the pack with some adversity facing him. We certainly know what Randy Popes can do because he is on the march. Coming up on the back of Jeff Courtney, that Kenda Viper, the Kenda Tires Viper. Geez, I think almost 100 guests here from Kenda Tire, and he was hoping, he qualified 3rd here last year, his best ever qualifying performance. Wasn't quite able to match that today, but nonetheless, having a lot of people here. But now he too has that mirror full of blue K-Pax Volvo. Boy, Randy Popes is booking.
Still, Jeff Courtney not about to roll over. That Woodhouse Performance Dodge Viper has been getting better and better all season. And although you'd think a Viper is more of a horsepower car, Jeff Courtney is more of a momentum driver. So this is a perfect match between car and driver for that Kenda Tires Viper.
It's going to be an interesting battle. You've also got the straight line speed of the Viper, the handling, as you said, of the Volvo, and the all-wheel drive. Pretty fascinating. Speaking of Volvo's handling and all-wheel drive up front, that is Andy Pilgrim still trying to stay with and chase down Brandon Davis, and he's certainly staying with him as we're on board the chase cam of Tony Rivera in that Taxmaster Porsche, who is sitting a very comfortable 3rd at this point, watching a great battle up front. And one thing we haven't really talked about, Tom, temperatures today quite high, very, very warm here at Mid-Ohio. And one thing that Mustang right here, Brandon Davis, that Applied Computer Solutions Sun Micro Mustang has been struggling with this season due to weight is a little bit of tire wear. He's got to be very careful in managing those tires as we take a look at the leaderboard. But early going here, he's hanging on to that lead. The competition behind him is intense, and Randy Pope's coming on. We are back at the Toyo Tires Mid-Ohio Grand Prix, presented by Dish Network and WorldChallengeDish.com. 7th round of the World Challenge Championships. This is the Speed World Challenge GT race, and it's a good one. Brandon Davis, we were talking about maybe conserving a little bit, but as Andy Pilgrim has picked the pace up, you see Brandon running wide at the exit of 1, getting that tire well up on the curb, and the reason is that Pilgrim is all over him, and in fact, Rivera closing up. But this is a great battle. The blue all-cut concrete Viper of Rich Marzial chased hard, and this is a great story. And the number 13 Woodhouse Performance Viper making his GT debut is Charlie Putman. Remember, he's run in touring cars many times, but this is his GT debut, doing a nice job in front of teammate Jeff Courtney right now, and then Popst.
Randy Popst is still trying to solve the puzzle that is Jeff Courtney. This is only going to help Randy Popst, as Jeff Courtney can't just sit back on his laurels. He's going to have to try to get around Charlie Putman just like this, and Randy's sitting back trying to wait for a mistake. Unfortunately, Jeff Courtney just put his head down and went. Meanwhile, Charlie Putman looks in the rearview mirror, and he's got to be just a little more trepidatious about seeing Randy Popst back there. This is going to be an interesting one to see work out. Viper, Volvo. Who'd have ever thought we'd see a Volvo racing Vipers here in Speed World Challenge GT?
Just some incredible balancing act done by the SCCA tech officials and making this level of competition possible. And for Randy Popst, the frustration, I think, is going to be interesting, because if he gets by Putman, guess what? He's going to be looking at that green Viper tail again, and then have Marzial in front. So all of them very, very quick in a straight line. Oh, Marzial! Oh, I thought he just slipped wide, but he's heading into the pit. Something wrong for Rich Marzial. Hasn't made the entire season, and good to see him back in that beautiful blue all-cut concrete Viper, but some sort of problem. Meanwhile, up front, it is still Brandon Davis hanging on. A slew of podiums, never off the podium except for, I believe it was Watkins Glen, where he had a snap throttle cable and finished 8th. Otherwise, he's been a point-scoring machine, but no wins, and that's got to frustrate him as we hop on board with Sonny Whelan, the Whelan Engineering vet.
Let's get a good angle here to watch Sonny Whelan drive this Corvette. Gives you a real sense of what it's like inside of the cockpit of a World Challenge car. This is a production car, but as you can see, all carbon fiber dash. All of the instruments are all condensed into that pod right in front of him, and he's got that sequential shifter. It looks like a fine day at the office for Sonny Whelan.
Meanwhile, on board with Randy Popst now, and he's gotten by Putman and right again on the back of Courtney in the Kenda Tires Viper. So this duel continues, and you'll notice once again Marzial no longer in the frame. The pit stop, we find out now, is a penalty, a stop-and-go penalty for moving early at the start. Meanwhile, on board with Popst, and he watches that Viper just inexorably draw away on the straight.
Every time he's going to be able to put the throttle on him, but you see, just coming into the carousel, wiggling a little bit more on those rear tires. I think Randy's worrying the rear tires off of Jeff Courtney.
Well, that's the one thing you can do, isn't it, is just hound the car in front of you, especially if it's a bit heavier, and use up the tires, use up the brakes, and hope that car starts to loosen up just a little bit, especially when applying that big horsepower, traction control or not. Meanwhile, another good look at Tony Gaples as he is right behind Ziegler in the Swisher Racing Global Motorsports Group Porsche.
Well, you wonder what made Bill Ziegler wait this long. After all, he's teamed up with James Sofronis and Dino Crescentini. But he said before the race he felt like the big difference was his Stop Tech brakes. He can go deeper, get the job done better, and Steve Ruiz happy to install a set. Bill Ziegler just loves the new brakes in his Porsche.
Well, obviously, being able to get deeper into turns allows you to carry more speed through turns sometimes. It's all part of the package, and a nice job as we watch Randy Popst continue his attack on Jeff Courtney, quicker in spots. But as some want to say, that Viper handles real well on the straights, and that always presents its challenges.
Well, Jeff Courtney and Randy Post have managed to dispatch all of those guys in front of them, so together they're doing a pretty good job. This battle is always intriguing where you see Brandon Davis, relatively new in this sport as a GT driver, and Andy Pilgrim, the veteran. This is a great duel.
And chasing them, Tony Rivera, who's had an interesting season.
We're still in it. Brandon's going to be hard to catch. He's going to need some luck to go our way and not his way, basically. But no, it's definitely good to be back up running where I feel that we should have been running the whole season. I mean, we're fighting, just different new team issues with the car, learning the tires, stuff like that, and it was really making me question myself for a long time. So luckily we're back on pace, and I don't think it's too late. I mean, anything can happen. I mean, I think almost every year the championship and World Challenge goes down to the final race.
It is often exactly that close, and Tony Rivera clearly thrilled to be a part of it. And let's not forget his prowess here at Mid-Ohio last year in the Patron GT3 Challenge in the Gold Cup Porsche class. He won both events, and Randy Popes finally figures out the answer. Look at Courtney get crossed up, trying to carry some speed into that turn as well, but Popes read it beautifully. That is what you have to do sometimes, Tom. When you make up your mind, the move has to be decisive, and Randy does that incredibly well.
And he did it in a place that Jeff Courtney really wasn't expecting it. Well,
Exactly.
Mark it on your belt, Jeff. You raced Randy Popes, and you raced him well, baby.
Well, you remember what Randy did to go from third to first at Autobahn with that same kind of a decisive move. Here's another look at it, and boy, you don't see that place as a passing zone often. You're right.
Jeff Courtney just a little loose getting in there, and Randy does the classic, I'll have that, and gets through. That back to Brandon Davis. You got to start worrying about his rear tires. Although he's tiptoeing around, you can see making every move very precisely. Andy Pilgrim never too far away. You've got to be wondering if Brandon's thinking, geez, does Andy Pilgrim have a little bit more that he's not showing me yet? Meanwhile, he's driving like a true professional. Great battle between Mustang, Volvo, and this car. Don't leave him out. As Mike Barkowski sees the leaders coming through, he wants no part of it. Oh, dear.
That is Andy Pilgrim into the pit lane. Problems for Andy Pilgrim as the white flag comes out. Unbelievable. After a solid second and hounding Davis suddenly. Well, you wonder, Tom, they've been struggling with gearbox issues all year. They've had problems with Pope's gearbox in qualifying. You wonder if that's come back home to roost. That, though, promotes that Orange Taxmasters Porsche Rivera into second. And here we go. Davis on his last lap with Rivera in tow as they head down the long back straight. And that is the all-cut concrete entry. Nice job by Rich, just pointing him furiously by, going, I know, take the lane. And Davis is through. But you're right, Davis in this heat with the weight of this car, the horsepower and the spin up on those rear tires, he has driven absolutely brilliantly. Smooth is the cure for that. He's been phenomenal.
And Tony Rivera, he said it in his interview. He's got to get a little luck to come his way. That's a few more points from second than from third. This is the way that Tony Rivera is going to erode his way back into this championship. He needs to keep this up. But Brandon Davis is the unstoppable force right now. And it looks like he's going to get his very first podium as points leader here at the Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course.
And keep in mind, this will be, assuming Brandon hangs on for this last sequence of turns, the 7th round of the championship, our 7th different winner. Variety, the spice of life in World Challenge GT, and Brandon Davis brings it home and gets his first win of the 2009 season. There's Rivera in a strong second. Just sweeping onto the front straight, James Safronis, a great comeback drive to third, but the story of the race, Randy Popes dead last to fourth in that K-Pax Volvo. An incredible drive. As you take a look at the rest of the lineup, let's get down to our winner.
Brandon Davis, when you come to the office to work like that, you put it on the pole, you lead every lap. I just don't think it can get any better.
I mean, that was exciting. That was an awesome feeling. Just so much doubt we've had all year where we've gotten on the pole, but then we weren't the fastest in the race and couldn't get up towards the front. And it finally feels great to just kind of finish it off and actually win one.
Well, with all of the great results he's had, this one long overdue. The celebration's well earned. Here are the points now after 7 rounds. Davis stretches it out. Safronis, that great comeback drive helped a lot, but Rivera makes up some points. Pilgrim's the one who got hurt there. Then, in the manufacturers' battle, look at how close it is. Porsche, Ford, Volvo, close indeed. The Auto Week move of the race, it was a beauty. Randy Popes knifing down underneath Jeff Courtney in turn 11. You don't do it there often. Well earned.
On behalf of Toyo Tires and the entire team at Optima Batteries, gentlemen, start your engines!
And that sets us up for the World Challenge Touring Car round of the Toyo Tires Mid-Ohio Grand Prix, presented by Dish Network and WorldChallengeDish.com. 7th round of the championship. And, of course, let's check in with Tom and the coin toss.
After qualifying here at the Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course, round number 7 for the touring cars, Charles Espenlaub sits on pole. Patrick Lindsay, Peter Cunningham, Kuno Whitmer, and Eric Foss. Once again, the Tri-Point guys have got 1st and 5th covered. You're going to toss the coin. Charles, call it in the air. If you win the toss, the grid stays the same. If you lose, the grid inverts. Go ahead, please. And heads it is, Charles Espenlaub. You spent the entire day at Watkins Glen racing some pretty cool equipment for Mazda. No practice at all, yet you put it on the pole. Great job.
Yeah, it's a tribute to Tri-Point Motorsports. My teammates Eric and Jason. Eric gave me a tow. We waited. We knew the track was going to be a little rough in the beginning, so I parked it, waited until about mid-session, went back out. Eric led me around and kind of showed me the way, so it's a tribute to him, and it's a great team. We got a great synergy between the three of us. So
I think he thinks he is Patrick Dempsey. Charles Espenlaub keeps the pole here in Mid-Ohio.
That Tri-Point trio mighty effective. Here's the great look from Chase Cam, the quad. Pierre Kleinubing, the real-time Redline Acura on the upper left. James Clay, the Bimmerworld Gear Wrench BMW upper right. Petey Cunningham, real-time Acura lower left. And Jason Saney, the Mazda Speed Stop Tech Mazda from Tri-Point. And here's your starting lineup. As you saw, Espenlaub on the pole, his 3rd career. Pat Lindsay, a great return to the series. Then Peter Cunningham and Kuno Whitmer, real-time Acuras in row 2. Row 3, Eric Foss, teammate to Espenlaub, and Seth Thomas in the Gear Wrench BMW. Row 4, James Clay, another of the BMWs. And Jason Saney, struggling in qualifying, basically told us car was great, he just did not get a good lap in. Then Pierre Kleinubing and Nick Isayan, who's been having a great season. Then a new team to the championship, Chris Pusker and Kevin Helms in the Honda Works entry, and Brandon Peterson qualifying in the 13th spot.
Let's get it on with Speed World Challenge Touring Car.
Deal, and we are ready to go. We are racing. Espenlaub, a great start, but Lindsay, boy, did he bog down, and both of the real-time Acuras come streaming through, Cunningham and Whitmer, and onto that short chute into the keyhole. It is Cunningham was able to slide through, pick up 2nd. Whitmer with that blue stripe on the hood down to the inside. But Lindsay now not giving it up, going door to door in that Horton Autosport Sloan Securities Mazda 6 around the outside. Not able to keep that spot, slots into 4th. And making the big move as well, Eric Foss, Tom, trying to wedge his way up into that 4th spot.
Eric Foss doing so well all season long, and it's just the small things that have kept him away. This is the view from Jason Saney's car, and now you're looking at Pierre Kleinubing. Pierre Kleinubing looks motivated and steaming off on that last turn, and that had to be the Honda at the back of the pack. There he goes into the sand trap. Uh-oh, that means we're probably going to go full course yellow, Greg.
Take a look here. Pierre Kleinubing reported to have moved a little early, Tom.
Well, you know, the grade here is just a little bit uphill on the start. It's so hard to avoid clutch creep, and looking at that picture, Greg, I think somebody might have got away with something.
That's entirely possible. Meanwhile, watching the battle up at the front of things, and Pat Lindsay, after that horrible start, able to sort of gather things up just a little bit, doing a nice job. But as you point out, wondering here if we are going to get that full course caution, as the number 05 of Kevin Helms in his first start in the championship parked in the gravel trap. So far have not seen any sign of it. Take a look at the leaderboard right now as the field streams onto the front straight early in the going here in the 7th round of World Challenge Touring. Welcome back to the Toyo Tires Mid-Ohio Grand Prix, presented by Dish Network and WorldChallengeDish.com. 7th round of the World Challenge Touring Cars. We did have a full course caution, and you see Pierre Kleinubing as the green flies. We're back to racing. Kleinubing into the pits. Indeed, was judged to have moved just fractions of a second early, but they did catch him. He has a drive-through penalty as a result. Boy, that is going to be painful in terms of track position. Meanwhile, up front, Espenlaub leads from Cunningham, Kuno Whitmer, Eric Foss, the second of those blue Mazdas, and then, who knows, 3 abreast at one point there, heading into the keyhole. World Challenge touring cars at its best.
Jason Saney doing his best to dispatch all 3 of these BMWs at once. They look like a street gang all lined up there as they chase down that Mazda of Jason Saney.
The lead 4, little bit of a gap. Look at Foss taking a big run at Whitmer. He looks down to the inside. Does he get the job done? He's inside, deep on the brakes. Eric Foss is through. Beautiful job of driving by Foss up into 3rd. Whitmer now back into 4th. Lindsay sits in 5th. But that little exchange has allowed Saney to rapidly close up that side-by-side. A little bit of a loss of momentum. Saney and the trio of Bimmerworld gear wrench BMWs coming after him big time. Meanwhile, up front, continuing a good run for Espenlaub. And tell you what, this guy has shown so much speed this year. Finally got a couple of seconds put together. How much would he love a win, Tom?
Oh, especially at Mid-Ohio. Charles Espenlaub, fresh from a run at Watkins Glen, where they were running the short course there with the Sprint Cup show, and he was running up front for a little while before electrical problems plagued him, sitting in for Patrick Dempsey in the Speed Source Mazda RX-8.
Well, he's doing a good job up front here, but look at this queue of cars. I'll tell you, this is impressive stuff. Yes, we had that caution, but nonetheless, this entire group still saying incredibly well grouped, and you could just throw a blanket over, the top 10 in this field right now, led by Espenlaub, but look at the margin to Cunningham. There isn't one. Cunningham looks to the inside, just showing the nose, trying to maybe fluster Espenlaub a little bit, get him to turn in early, float wide, anything he can do, and Espenlaub not biting one bit at this point out of the keyhole onto that long back straight.
Look how well matched all of these cars are. The Mazdas, the Acuras, and there go the BMWs. All of them running just exactly the same number in terms of speed at the end of the straightaway. That's a tribute to SCCA, and that's what World Challenge is all about as Cunningham shows the nose one more time. Espenlaub not having it, and there we get Eric Foss involved.
Foss trying to do the outside line. Some call it the Tracy line around the turn, but then ran a little wide, dropped his left wheels, and there is a bump. That was, I believe, Whitmer and Lindsay having a little bit of a tink. Everybody at this point getting through. But, boy, I'll tell you, that move by Petey in the defensive line by Espenlaub, everybody packing up, and James Clay, ooh, hello.
Hello.
That's the chrome horn, folks.
James Clay's got no move other than to try to sustain his momentum, and sometimes that means just a little contact. Not fussed about it is Saney.
But that scrum continues. Oh, and Lindsay suddenly just drifts wide and is just off in the grass at a very reduced bit of speed, gathers it up as Chris Pusker goes by, and heading into the carousel, Pusker picks up and Lindsay heading into the pit, so a problem clearly with that car. That's too bad. He had a great run going in that Sloan Securities Mazda. Hopefully something that is fixable. Meanwhile, as I said, Chris Pusker picks the spot up, who, by the way, finished 4th here in the 04 runoffs at Mid-Ohio in Showroom Stock B, and it looks like a flat right front tire, which would make sense, Tom. That contact could very well have cut a tire down.
You know, whenever you have contact, that's really the only vulnerable part of these cars. You can bang on the doors all you want, but if you touch tires, chances are you're going to come home with a flat.
Meanwhile, action continues and everybody finding their own race at this point. A couple of the BMWs having a very good run, and here we go at the front end again. Cunningham now swinging wide. Espenlaub trying to defend. Cunningham trying to run that outside line. Not going to happen this time. Here comes Eric Foss. He takes a look. No, has to tuck back in. Nothing between these cars. Whitmer right there. Saney right there. It is that close. And there is Essayan and Thomas in 2 of the Bimmerworld Gear Wrench cars just outside of this top 6 queue, but awfully close. And Espenlaub feeling the heat, but a bit of lockup right there as Foss doing everything he can to try and find a way by Petey Cunningham. And this is one of those great scenarios, Tom, especially for somebody watching, not so much when you're in the car, where if you make the move on the guy in front, you may let the guy behind you come steaming by. You've got to judge this perfectly. And just a little bit of a gap there suddenly appearing for Espenlaub. Boy, he's good into the carousel.
You call that a gap? That's a 2-car length
relative
gap.
Speaking.
These guys running all on the same number. It just doesn't get any better than this. Mid-season or mid to late season with touring cars, the rewards weight is all played out. These guys are all running on a razor's edge. You can't give any quarter, and sooner or later, something's got to give. If Cunningham's going to get by Espenlaub, it's going to take some kind of catastrophic event, and neither of these guys want that to happen.
We just saw Lindsay rejoin as well, and there you go, a little bit of a tink right there. And you saw the bobble by Cunningham, but he kept his foot in it. But that has allowed Foss to come up the inside. Foss not quite able to do it there. Again, Espinlov goes defensive, so Petey moves to the outside. You can do it, but you've got to be all the way alongside to try and make this work. Look at Foss trying to help Espinlov. Espinlov, a bit of lockup, but he gets in well. Foss dives down the inside. Boom! Hits Cunningham. Cunningham completely sideways. Oh, he corrects sideways again. He gets hammered. I think that was James Clay. Got firmly into the side of Cunningham. Huge developments. You know why they call it madness, folks?
That's right. That's what you call a humdinger right there. Petey Cunningham got clocked, taken out, straightened out a little bit by Kuno Whitmer, was on his way off the track, and James Clay came along and saved the day, and it looked to me like Cunningham never lifted.
Unbelievable. Well, front drive, the way you save it is you keep your foot in it and it's turn where you hope to go. And there's not a big surprise as Whitmer is able to slide through as Petey Cunningham. That car has to have a little bit of damage to it. You'd think right around that left rear tire area, and that's got to make it interesting.
Well, Petey Cunningham's taking inventory right now, thinking, does it turn left and right? Does it go? Does it stop? Evidently, he thinks it does because he keeps on right going, and he's right in the wheel tracks of Kuno Whitmer. And we got to see some replays of this. Take a look at this, Greg.
There's the hit by Foss. He's completely sideways. There, he gets loosened up again by Whitmer, comes across. Boom! Clay right in front of that left rear tire, and Clay just rotates and stops. Damage to that car. Another look.
There's Eric Foss knocking him out of the way. Eric Foss dispatches him. He keeps going. There he gets clipped by Kuno Whitmer and nearly gets picked up by Pierre Kleinubing. And here's one more look. Bam! There's James Clay knocking Cunningham. And let's look at it from Cunningham's point of view. Gets knocked back onto the track and never lifts off the throttle right here and joins the fray. You're not ever going to see that again. I don't care whether you're watching Sprint Cup, IndyCar, British Touring Car. That's World Challenge.
And Jason Saney, a magician. Somehow he hit the disappear button, threaded the needle, and he is second right now to Espinlov. Unbelievable driving by Saney. Welcome back to the World Challenge Wars here at Mid-Ohio. It is World Challenge GT Round 7, the Toyo Tires Mid-Ohio Grand Prix presented by Dish Network and WorldChallengeDish.com. And this race, folks, is one of the best. Unbelievable action here in touring cars, and it's not done. Espinlov with Saney right there. Oh, and Saney dives to the inside. Espinlov, nothing he can do about it, lets him go. Saney just really timed that beautifully, and he is through. And I think they maybe had to work together just a little bit, because if one of them had been a little too defensive, Whitmer would have been all over them and possibly through. These guys, the teammates here, are just exceptional in how they work together. Keep in mind that Espinlov got a tow in qualifying from Foss, and look at this beautiful move. Right back down the inside we go. And a little bit of a gap forming here up front, up through Madness. Just some great racing action, and you know those Tri-Point boys are going to be working firmly together. That is something this team is very high about, the relationships.
We got a great team synergy here. You know, Jason's a very good friend of mine. We've been friends for a long time. Eric and I have been friends for a long time. We've driven all kinds of different stuff together. Obviously, all the guys on the team were all just there for the team and for Mazda. You know, basically the main goal is manufacturers' points for Mazda, and then, you know, if we can help Jason in the Drivers' Championship too, we'll try to do that too. So
that's well recognized, because these drivers to a person know what Mazda has done for them, so they are certainly going to do everything they can for Mazda first and then for themselves second, and it really has paid off with this great run back into the points. Now Whitmer, though, big move underneath Espinlov in turn one. Boy, that's a tough place to do it, but he was able to get the drive and get down the inside. We hop on board with Petey Cunningham watching this battle. That slowed both of them up. Here comes Petey. He's going to get the run. Espinlov couldn't defend. Petey down to the inside. Essayan trying to follow that blocking back through. Couldn't quite get it done there. But just that quickly, again, momentum, Tom.
All it took was a little lift from Espinlov for Cunningham just to not do anything special. He just kept his foot in it and drove straight through. But what a move by Kuno Whitmer to initiate that whole thing. Meanwhile, the beneficiary of all of this, Greg, is Saney. He books out. This is the biggest lead we've had all day.
It's a very good point. I mean, that side-by-side action, it helps those behind close up, but it lets those in front get away. And Saney making good his escape right now as Espenlaub falling fully into the clutches of those two BMWs with those two real-time Redline Oil Acuras sitting in second and third. Whitmer over Cunningham as we hop on board with Nick Sayin in the Det Cures Bearman World BMW. Whoa, somebody running wide. That's Whitmer! Whitmer, that's the number 44. Something has gone wrong. Just suddenly, all the way off the pace, traps Sayin just a little bit, and Whitmer pulling off to the side of the track. Tom, this does not look good.
Yeah, there's a few things he can try in there. He can try switching it off, restarting the system. You saw his headlights come on and off there, but it looks like he's out of ideas for now, pulls it off onto the grass, and no matter what happens from this point, Whitmer is not going to be a part of this story. Meanwhile, Cunningham picks up the battle as he goes out after Saney, and Espenlaub has got a rear view mirror full of Seth Thomas who goes down the outside under the bridge.
Meanwhile, Whitmer is able to get the Acura restarted. He maybe just switched to a different ignition. Now Espenlaub trying to get back around Thomas. He's going to try the outside into the keyhole. Not going to happen. So you wonder what is going on with Espenlaub after having such good pace. Suddenly that pace seems to be somewhat intermittent. We'll try and follow up on that. Meanwhile, Pierre Kleinhubing, remember that stop and go earlier in the race for moving early? He is on a charge back through the pack and is now embroiled in a great battle with the 75 of Eric Foss.
A little bit of contact between those two guys as well, as Foss able to slip through, and Kleinhubing certainly not going to lift, so that incidental contact on the rear bumper, and he makes sure he squares it up. Now he's going to try to go round the outside of the keyhole. This only works about 1 out of 5 times. If anybody's going to pull it off, it's going to be Pierre Kleinhubing.
He does, but at the same time, Brandon Peterson skates into the beach, that huge gravel trap on the approach to Madness, and there goes Kleinhubing as he gets down and underneath Foss and makes that work. That outside move gives you the inside for the top of Madness, and he executed that to perfection, Tom.
But it all started at the entry to the keyhole, in the braking zone of the keyhole, and resolves itself about 3,700 feet down the track. That's momentum racing, and nobody but does it any better than Pierre Kleinhubing.
Not at all. An incredible record here. He's had pulls. He's had lots of podiums and even a win in the past as well. Meanwhile, Jason Saney comes up, and there are the double yellows. Again, with Peterson in that SuperTech competition clutch Acura in that gravel trap. This is going to make things interesting.
Holy smoke, it's as if we need this one more time. We're going to get our hearts pounding, but this makes for great World Challenge action. Saney leading Cunningham, Thomas, and Espenlaub, 3 manufacturers in the top 5. That's why they call this World Challenge. We'll be right back.
Welcome back to the Toyo Tires Mid-Ohio Grand Prix, presented by Dish Network and World Challenge Dish.com. 7th round, World Challenge Touring. The race we're following now. Pace car is in. We are back to green. Jason Saney leads him away. Keep in mind, folks, Saney started 8th. What a race he has put in. And in second, P.D. Cunningham. Damaged car. Watch it. You can see it's crabbing. It is not in alignment, and yet somehow he has figured out how to drive this thing quick enough to be second in one of the most competitive racing series in the world. There is Pat Lindsay, the 57, his return to the series. And when you race a Mazda, he found out when he came back here, you're part of family.
I was left on the doorstep. They took me right in, as one of their own. I really appreciate it from Mazda. I mean, they've been great, fantastic to work with, and what a family. I mean, it's a real honor to drive with guys that I've watched and cheered on. But I guess all I can say is that, we kind of expect it. If that sounds weird, I think a racing driver kind of has to expect that they belong in the front to be good at what he or she does.
Well, I'll tell you what, and in his first return to this series since the season finale last year, qualified second, so repaying Mazda and TriPoint for all the help they gave him when he showed up here on his 09 debut. And he is right back in this scrum with a great drive after that cut tire in the early going. There's Kleinhubing down to the inside of Espenlaub, gets squeezed, a little bump, both of Kleinhubing's right side tires over the curb, and now we hop on board with Nick Asayan, who said, there's a little momentum change, maybe I could take advantage of it. Now Kleinhubing knifes underneath the 73 of Espenlaub as they head into the carousel, so he gets another pass done, and Asayan, he's got thoughts as well.
Nick Asayan sees an opportunity and tries to capitalize on it. You just got to keep the momentum up. It's just keep your braking a little bit later, try to keep all your pressures a little bit lighter, and try to stay up on that wheel. Nick Asayan sees it, and he's going to try to go around this unconventional move. Espenlaub's had that happen a couple of times to him, and he started to get a little frustrated by it.
But a saying, that's what we talked about. When you're in close quarters traffic, sometimes when you decide to make the move, it has to be decisive. And he just absolutely went for it. And now Lindsay working to get down underneath Espinlab, but that was a little bit optimistic, and Espinlab was definitely going to be turning in, and he realized that. Oh! And Espinlab giving Hussein a little rub, and actually loosened Hussein up on the exit, and that is going to be big-time beneficial for Lindsay.
Lindsay sees the opportunity, and he'll go down and try to make some hay out of this, not giving up. Looks inside, outside. Did Hussein lift when he felt the pressure from Espinlab? Looks like he did okay. Meanwhile, Thomas is in the fray. He's pounding on Cunningham's door, and look who's right behind them. Where the heck did Kleinubing come from?
What a comeback drive by Kleinubing. And you know what? These Bimmer World cars, not just with Clays with the heavy damage, but the other two are going to need some bumper work. They have been letting people know they are there all race long. Some great stuff. But Kleinubing, after that stop-and-go penalty, has been relentless in his charge back through the pack. And again, a little bit of a tink. And again, Petey Cunningham, that is not a necessarily healthy car. He is driving it as best he can, and look at 42. Kleinubing getting in there a little hot, back end stepping out as he had to lift, and saved it. Again, just squeezing that pedal. And Seth Thomas going to try and get a run on Cunningham down into turn one. But Petey, boy, that thing's working pretty good in the left-handers. Whatever that toe out is, he gets onto these key corners onto this front straight rather well.
You know, all those years of endurance racing that Peter Cunningham did, as you know, Greg, sometimes you get into a car in the middle of the night and it's just a piece of junk. And Peter Cunningham learned how to drive in these cars, so he's not fussed at all with the fact that his real-time racing Acura is different. Maybe not good, but different, and he's driving the wheels off the thing.
Well, and he has more starts here in World Challenge than anybody else. This is his 12th, and he won here actually in the big class when it was called T1 in the Acura NSX. So, and lots of other racing here at Mid-Ohio over the years, as you point out. Now, big move here is Thomas, this time just too strong, and is able to make the move, duck down underneath. And Peter has to be careful because Pierre Kleinubing is right there. But Thomas, a little wide. Maybe Petey helped him get a little loose. And Petey's alongside, and there they go. And here we go. 3 abreast to the exit of Madness and up and over the jump. And Pierre Kleinubing went, maybe not. Now he just dives down to the inside. I think he makes it.
He feels ganged up on. Seth Thomas just got beat up by 2 bad boys in Acuras.
And Thomas now has his teammate all over him with Lindsay. Ramp on the outside. Lindsay gets through.
We don't have to go to commercial, do we? Please say we don't have to go to commercial.
Sadly, we do, but we'll be back and bring you the finish. And the white flag flies here in the 7th round of the World Challenge Touring Cars, the Toyo Tires Mid-Ohio Grand Prix, presented by Dish Network and WorldChallengeDish.com. And what a beauty they've had to cover. Unbelievable action here as we are on the last lap, and some remarkable performances, Tom. Jason Saney from 8th to the lead. Petey Cunningham, wounded car, able to hang on to 2nd. Pierre Kleinubing, a fight back to 3rd. It's unbelievable.
Oh, and don't forget Patrick Lindsay. You know, he came in for a pit stop. Now he's back into 5th place. Now Kleinubing still not giving up in the keyhole here, but he's formed up with his teammate. Not much they can do with Jason Saney at this point in time, but do the 2 real-time guys go to battle on the last lap? I think not, Greg.
Well, if Pierre was close enough, he might give it a look. He's not now, and right now his sort of task is to keep that Bimmerworld gear wrench BMW of Seth Thomas at bay, and that is exactly what he's been able to do. Pat Lindsay is coming up and giving them a bit of a run as well, but this is very interesting stuff because for Pierre, you know, last thing you want to do is let a different manufacturer come through when you guys, the Acuras is what I'm talking about, are in a huge pitch battle right now with Mazda for the manufacturer points title. So very, very interesting strategies being employed right now. And Petey Cunningham, a masterful clinic. Oh, Pat Lindsay, you don't think he's pushing hard? He's giving it everything coming out of 11. Meanwhile, into the carousel for the last time, Jason Saney onto the front straight. This would be his 3rd win of the season. He came in with the points lead, and 8th to 1st. That's why this guy is leading in the points. and leading big time also helps in the manufacturers' points battle. Here come the real-time boys, Tom, and Seth Thomas sitting in fourth.
So you've got all of the manufacturers playing out in this round, and World Challenge always gets this good at the end of the season, Greg.
An absolutely incredible race. We're heading to Victory Circle, and you'll see just as we go, James Clay, an interested spectator.
There's no way you could have predicted this.
Never in a million years. You know how tight this racing is, and with Peter and Pierre and my teammates all ahead of me, both Beamer World Cars, I thought it was going to be a hard day to get the Mazda up front, but it was just a crazy race at the beginning, lots of back and forth, and I just hung in there, made a good restart on the first yellow, and next thing you know, I'm leading, and all credit, I feel terrible for Charles. He had an awesome car, but all credit to the team. It's the best, in all my years of racing, as the best handling car I've ever driven.
And as Tom mentioned, he may live in Texas now, but he's an Ohio native. This one meant a lot, particularly since it expanded his margin in the points over Cunningham and Kleinubing, then Seth Thomas and Kuno Whitmer. And after coming in tied, Mazda now has a huge 3-point margin over Acura in the Manufacturers' Championship. Here is our Auto Week move of the race, a decisive move by Pierre Kleinubing, and a crucial one as it earned him a podium finish as well as he gets underneath Seth Thomas. Well, folks, that wraps things up here from the 7th round of the championship at Mid-Ohio. Up next, Road America. It's going to be awesome. Join us then, and take care.